This is the DiPietro, Canty, and Rothenberg podcast.
I'm a big star, you know.
Listen live weekday mornings from 5 to 8 a.m. on 98.7 ESPN in New York, the ESPN app, the TuneIn app, or on your smart speaker.
Hey, Alexa, play ESPN New York 98.7.
Good morning, DCR.
Got the number one pick and a Super Bowl champ with the man they can't seem to stump. Do something dumb, that's an observation. CLT make him need to run.
That's Lawrence Taylor!
I don't marry trash, CMT for short. Wonder if we best, won't you peep the score? Sports Center gonna be top stories of the morning. While you're yawning, grab your coffee, rise and shine with 98.7. This is Drive Time. We provide highlights from your favorite teams. Dave, Chris, and Rick making plenty of picks. It's Rule 76.
Oh, man, what a day for DCR to be off. It's Bob Wishoes and Willie Colon sitting in for the boys here on 98.7 ESPN. If it is possible for a baseball team to have their best win of the season and their worst win of the season in back-to-back days, somehow the Yankees managed to accomplish that yesterday, and we're going to talk about it with you on the telephones at 800-919-3776, 800-919-ESPN. Again, Bob Wishoes, Willie Colon. Willie, it is good to be reunited in the dark. Man, this is early. I don't know when you normally get up, man, but this is on the early side for me.
Bob, anytime I hear your voice, I know football's around the corner.
We're going to talk football.
I know we're going to talk ball, but it just is. It's kind of like when you for football players, there's always that time of the year where you smell fresh cut grass. You're like, oh, okay, it's that time. So when I hear Bob Wishoes, I'm like, oh, okay, time. We're coming around the horn. It's go time.
I appreciate it.
Yep.
Normally it's not good news for the people I'm talking to, though. Maybe that'll change this year.
Yeah, exactly.
But, right now we're not smelling fresh-cut grass. Like,
not
this
yet.
is the crickets and, like, the skunk smell outside, and, you know what I mean? Like, this is really early.
But, Bob, this is good to get up. Like, one thing listen, I'm getting up there in age, but I realize, like, you just get more done when you get up, and you kind of just get the body moving, you kind of go through your honey-do list, and then you find yourself around 12 in the afternoon, you're like, oh, I got a little free time. I got a little time to kind of stretch out and do what I want. So getting up and getting after it is a good thing, especially on a Monday.
Yep, that might be true, but you're a pro athlete. I'm just kind of like a fat schlunker who doesn't normally want to do anything before noon, and so like that's where I think you and I are probably different.
Hey, it doesn't matter. You still get it done, Bob, so I believe in Bob on a Monday.
All right, well, look, you, as I said, pro athlete. So you have been through the ringer before. I know when you were a Jet, Geno Smith was the quarterback. You know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, I had Geno and Fitz. Yeah.
Having said that, you're a New York Yankee this morning.
Correct.
And if you started the day, if I take you back to say 4 o'clock in the afternoon on Saturday, you are about to get what is like an out of nowhere, you are dead in the water, you are showing no life, inspirational win in the building you have not been able to win a game in this year. You are gnawing away at a lead, and then you come back the next day, and a pitcher that has been on a bit of a roller coaster this season goes out and just lights it up. Has a no-hitter through 7 innings. You got a 4-run lead in the 8th inning, and all of a sudden you're on the verge of a split. I heard David Cohn say this yesterday in the 6th inning. I think it was the 6th inning when he said something to the effect, and again, this is the former professional athlete, the guy that's been in that position saying it. He said, look, after the Yankees lost the way they did on Friday, they've got a 3-0 lead in the 6th inning, then a 4-0 lead in the 7th inning. They got a guy pitching a no-hitter. They're in a position to split. Here come all the COVID guys back, right? Gio Urshela's back. They're about to get Aaron Judge back.
Yep.
And David Cohn said, what a change in the demeanor, what a change in the attitude of this team. There's a total attitude adjustment. You can feel it with the team. You can feel it with the entire fan base. And then the 8th inning happens. All right, so now you're in that clubhouse. You're on this team. You're looking at your teammates. Like, what? When you wake up this morning, how do you bounce back from this?
Well, I think you have to put things in perspective, right? Listen, they're 3.5 games out of the playoffs. If you look at if you look at what happened this weekend, man, I think you're over the kind of. I said this. I was talking to my buddy about the game a little bit yesterday. I was like, you're kind of over the, win one for this, Gipper, kind of rally the troops. These are the dog days. These are the ugly days when you kind of got to you got to sit in it, and you got to on this from a ball player standpoint. You got to like this. Nobody's going to save us but us, right? And that's, as a ball player, you have to sit back and say, well, how do we get better individually? Because right now, I don't think any Aaron Boone can say anything. I don't know. I don't think the powers to be can say anything. I don't even think the guys who are leaders in your clubhouse can say anything to get these guys on the right track. You win Saturday. You dropped one yesterday. You're waking up like, how? How are we here? But yet there's still a glimmer of hope. So you kind of have to rely on that. Like, listen, it's ugly. It doesn't feel good. There's all this speculation going into Friday if we're going to buy or we're going to sell. How are we going to maneuver? But we're still here. And it's tough. It's a tough one to swallow, especially yesterday, as you mentioned, where Haman, who's just cleaning, he's doing everything you need him to do, and then boom, a bomb drops, and the team it falls down right in front of your face. It's a hard one to swallow, but this team, Aaron Boone made a comment like, "Listen, you got to credit our guys. They keep getting themselves." We keep picking our backs up off the mat. That means something. And for all you Yankee fans out there, it was like, well, Willie, what does it mean? It means that the team has a little bit of grit, something that the Mets have. And that they're starting to find themselves like, hey, we can take the punches, but at some point, we got to keep ourselves off the mat. And that's the goal. But they find themselves to keep rep. Hopefully, Judge gets back. Hopefully, they can figure out how they can move forward. But I credit this team. They show grit, man. They're just not. Yesterday's win could have meant a lot more, but losing the way they lost just stings.
Well, I guess in the big picture, they're 3.5 games out of the second wild card spot.
Correct. Yes.
So anyone that thinks there's going to be a fire sale or they're trading Aaron Judge at the end of this week, I can't see that, because these kind of like new baby bombers that they slapped together this past week with all the COVID absences, they did at least tread water. They're in the same spot now that they were when they lost all the guys to COVID. Now they're about to play 3 against Tampa. So if you get swept by Tampa, who knows? Oof. But at the same time, 3.5 out of a wild card spot and 4 games over 500, getting your guys back, they're not going to go out and have a fire sale and clean house. But is the wild card fool's gold, right? Sometimes the wild card can do 2 things. A, it can keep a gritty, young, overachieving team in it, yep. And you're playing games all the way through the season, and the games matter, and and there's like a good feeling around an organization because maybe you're overachieving. It can also be fool's gold for a flawed, overrated, poorly put together team that should be competing for their division title, should be a team that you think could win 94, 95, 100 games like they won the 2 years before COVID. And now are you sitting there kidding yourself that it's sooner or later we're going to flip a switch and maybe the wild card, like if they were only playing for the division and they're 9 games out at this point, there might be a fire sale. Yeah. They might dump everyone.
But Bob, you don't feel like this team is quit, do you? Because I don't get that feeling.
They never quit.
When they played the Mets and they went down and they didn't do well in that series, and it was kind of a bummer, and I thought that was a part of me was like, man, I don't know if this broke the Yankees losing to the Mets the way they lost to the Mets, and especially in that series. But then I was like, you know what? Give them a shot. Let them kind of come out of there. Watching this, going into this Tampa series, I think this is the make or break right here. I think this is the one like, well, you're talking about fool's gold. You're sitting back, you're saying like, man, if we don't get something positive out of this series going into this, but right before the deadline, then you can start questioning like, are we who we say we are? Are we have enough to kind of push us through? Obviously not, because you're in this predicament, but I don't know, man. I sometimes just kind of being in a foxhole with your guys together, and it's dark and it's murky. Sometimes a glimmer of hope. Sometimes some light comes out of it. Sometimes just realizing no matter how bad you are, there's always hope at the end of the line. That sparks something inside guys. So hopefully that can happen, man. But this weekend it was tough to watch.
Yeah, I mean that meltdown in the 8th inning. I mean the 2 moments, obviously, from a managerial standpoint, that Aaron Boone has to be. He was second guessed about both of them. I guess probably first guessed by most fans, and asked about it in the post-game press conference. talked about the fact he didn't have the infield in when they hit the ground ball to Gleyber Torres when Britton came in. And to me, the one that was glaring, I know they just got Loaisiga back off the COVID pause. I know that he has been their best reliever so far this season. Didn't have it yesterday. Once he faced 7, 8, and 9 in the order, and all 3 guys got hits, and 2 of them were line drives, now you turn the order over. Now you can take him out. You have to face 3 batters. All right, we know that. You can't take him out before he faces number 9 in the order, but he didn't have to face Kike Hernandez, and Kike Hernandez just turned on one. And to me, that was, that was the absolute, as we've heard so many times this season, gut punch moment in that game for Aaron Boone. He should have gotten Loaisiga out of the game. He did not need to face a 4th batter. You needed to manage that game yesterday. You needed to draw the infield in. You needed to get Loaisiga out after the minimum 3 batters that he faced. You needed to manage that game yesterday like it was Game 7 of the World Series. There are moments in your season where you can feel it teetering on the brink of going one way or going the other way. And I think David Cohn was right. Like when he said in the 6th or 7th inning, hey, there's a whole new feel to this season if they win this game. You got Domingo Germán out there, and he's throwing a no-hitter, and you got a 4-run lead. You lost the first 2 games. The way you lost on Thursday night was brutal, and you were dead in the water on Friday, rather.
Right.
And Saturday, you have this inspired comeback, and now Germán is out there with a no-hitter in the 7th inning. You're getting your guys back. Here comes Aaron Judge. Maybe at the trading deadline, you're a buyer. Here comes the cavalry. There's a different demeanor, a different attitude. Your fan base is going to feel completely different about this season.
Do we feel different because it's the Red Sox, though?
Oh, well, I mean, they're winning the division. Yeah. First of all, it's your rival. Second of all, they're the gold standard right now in the division. The Yankees are 9 games behind them with a chance to get to 7. But I think just the bigger picture, to me, that's a guy that was in your shoes. Right? That's the former professional athlete that has been in a clubhouse, has been in pennant races, has been in World Series before, sensing this is a moment. This is a fork-in-the-road, crucible moment in your season where getting these 2 wins, the way that you're about to get them, can change the entire fortunes of your year. To lose the way they did in the 8th, that's why, to me, Aaron Boone has to sense that, too. You got to pull the infield in. You got to get Loaisiga out after 3 hitters. This is not the, all right, we're in the dog days, middle of summer, I'm going to trust my guy, he's been so consistent this season, I'm going to... No, once he faces those first 3 guys and you can see he doesn't have it, you got to manage like your season is on the line and get him out. And to me, that's the biggest mistake that Aaron Boone made.
That's the biggest thing is being a former player, right? There's that walking, there's that fine line. Like, do I do what's necessary? Or do I trust my guys because I believe in my guys? I was in this position. I've seen guys come out of situations. I've seen guys put themselves out of, rocky situations. Do I kind of just ride? And it's true. Like, you expect Aaron Boone to kind of not be tone deaf. You expect him to kind of step up and make the right play or make the right call there, and he just didn't. So, but this has kind of been a running story for Aaron Boone all season. When is he going to step up, kind of make that pivotal decision where his team can really go in the right direction?
Although, to hold Aaron Boone solely responsible for where this team is at, and if he loses his job, to me is
he's not going to lose his job.
And I don't think he deserves to. I have to admit it. Like, as bad as I think there have been moments this season, and look, I know Yankee fans, you can't have a year like this and not have a sacrificial lamb. To me, that's what he is if he loses his job. But I think from Brian Cashman's standpoint, to me, this is the question now going forward. Like you said, 3.5 games out of the wild card spot. The trade deadline is the end of this week. There are players that are difference-making players that are going to be on the market, whether it's Trevor Story, whether it's 3 different guys that could be traded by the Cubs, right? I mean, I would think the one that probably makes the most sense for the Yankees would be Javi Baez because you could move Gleyber Torres back to second. You could put LeMahieu at first.
Which needs to happen, right? I think we could all understand that Torres at shortstop just isn't it no more.
But whichever guy you get, are you go like to me, the Yankees cannot be static. You either have to make a decision that you just don't think this team can do it this year, and you are going to sell off some assets and make something happen, or you have to be a buyer, right? You got to be a buyer, or there are certain teams that I think can go have the luxury of, if you're the Red Sox, you have the luxury of going into the trade deadline and saying, you know what, if the perfect deal falls in our lap,
we'll go for it.
If there's a guy out there that we think just for whatever reason is an ideal fit, that makes sense. The Yankees have to force the issue. The Yankees have to go one way or the other because this is not working. Now, being only 3.5 games out of the wild card spot, I think you can make a very strong argument that getting Judge back and you go out and make a big deal, that could be a shot in the arm that changes the whole dynamic of this team. Like you get Trevor Story or you get Javi Baez and you get Judge back and all of a sudden, a little bit of a cavalry charge from your pitching staff. You could next week say, hey, this is a whole different feel around this team, right, and maybe go get one of those wild card spots. But it's got to be one or the other. If the same team shows up on Saturday morning that the Yankees put out there on Friday, then I think that's a mistake. That's a whiff. Like, you got to go one way or the other if you're Brian Cashman.
Well, I think Cashman believes in what he has. So, personally, I feel like he's just going to ride it out. I think at this point, going into this deadline, you got to see yourself like, man, what's the after effect of all this? Do we have enough what it takes to kind of get us over the hump? Obviously, especially with the spark you just talked about, will that still be enough? And is it worth the risk? So I think the Yankees are in a position, like you just mentioned, where they really got to buy into whatever move they make next is going to be the right one for this team.
Thanks for listening to the DiPietro, Canty, and Rothenberg podcast.
You're absolutely right.
Catch the show on demand wherever and whenever you want. Just subscribe to us, rate us, and review us wherever you get your podcasts.
Got some Yankee fans, I'm sure, that are going to sound off about what they saw yesterday and over the weekend, but they'll also probably want to hear what Aaron Boone had to say about a couple of key moments in yesterday's game. So he was asked when, the rally was starting for the Red Sox, why he didn't have the infield drawn in on a ball that was hit to Gleyber Torres. And here is what the Yankee manager had to say, second-guessing himself. Here's Aaron Boone.
Think about going all the way in there with no outs. I just didn't want to get beat on something soft with no outs. So had the middle back, in hindsight, that's the one that you kind of question myself about, like, should we have just, sold out with no outs there? That's certainly debatable. All
right. Now, the other thing that he was asked, obviously, was there any thought about keeping Domingo Germán in longer because obviously had a no-hitter going into the eighth inning but gave up the leadoff double, and here is what Aaron Boone had to say about potentially keeping in Germán a little bit longer.
No, I didn't want to go much past 80 today as it was, and then I already knew we were kind of in that danger zone a little bit, and so just kind of going hitter to hitter at that point. Verdugo put a good swing on him, and we're set up at the back end, and just couldn't get it done today. But Domingo was dominant, but no, it was hitter to hitter at that point.
See, Willie, that was not a second guess for me at all. I didn't think Domingo Germán was going to stay. And after once the no-hitter was gone, and he's already a dozen pitches past what anybody, I think, that was dialed into the Yankees knew he was going to give them yesterday, I thought taking him out there was the right move.
Yeah, why burn him out? I think especially he said it right there, he already knew he was in a danger zone. Why keep pushing him, especially if the no-hitter's gone? I mean, if you're Aaron Boone, you still got to allow him to kind of have some instinct out there. And I think he just has a feel. I think right now, I know you mentioned him questioning himself earlier. I know from a ball player standpoint, if you start reading that, you start hearing that, that causes a little bit of panic. So hopefully that's not the case. Hopefully he's still dialed in and his nerves are still steady. But it did sound a little shaky in that one comment.
Now, the one that I thought was the most glaring mistake and second guess, an easy second guess, was once Loaisiga had faced the minimum 3 batters, he was eligible to be taken out, had given up 3 straight hits, 2 of them line drives, and now you're back to the top of the order. He left Loaisiga in to face Kike Hernandez, and this is, I guess, Aaron Boone talking about that decision and why Loaisiga struggled.
I don't know. I mean, obviously coming back, and back-to-back days here, it looked like he just missed on the plate with a lot of pitches, and they capitalized when they got pitches in the middle of the plate. They were able to sting him, so, not his day. Johnny's been so good all season, obviously, so just not his day as far as location went.
Yeah, but that's not good enough. I mean, to me, like I said earlier, this is one of those moments where it is a turning point potentially in your season. You need to manage that game like it's Game 7 of the World Series. When you see it's not his day, and watching him face the first 3 guys that he faced, you could see it. He can't face a 4th guy there.
Yeah, but can you... I mean, a guy is allowed not to have his day, right? It goes back to what I was... Sometimes Boone falls on the fence of saying, like, I'm just going to ride with this guy. He's going to come out of it, or something's going to happen. I can feel Boone believing in his guys, trusting it. I don't. We can't fall into the position where we question every move he doesn't make as a move as he shouldn't make. Sometimes it's a feel thing, and you got to trust that the feeling he has is the right one, even though the outcome may be detrimental. You know what I mean?
But I would go the other way and say, if you're the Red Sox, you got the 9-game lead, or you're a team that's got a 4, like the A's, a lead in the wild card race, you've earned a little bit of cushion. You can maybe sit there and say, all right, I'm going to ride with my guy, and I'm going to see if he can get this done. The Yankees are out of, like, that is gone. Like, they are, the maintenance days, guys taking days off, all of that is now done. They have to play every game for the rest of this season like it's life or death. Now, if all of a sudden they rip off 12 in a row and they become the team that's got a 3 or 4 game lead in the wild card spot, or they all of a sudden are within a couple of games of the Red Sox, and now they are in a totally different position.
So you're calling for urgency. You're calling for, like, listen, shoot him if you got him. Just go for it.
If you don't have urgency now, when are you going to have it? I mean, we have enough of a sample size. We've seen 100 games, right? There's 60 left, and you're 9 games back. Well, to me, you have.
But there's still a lot of baseball
all these
left,
games
Bob.
like it's Game 7.
There's still a lot of ball left.
Oh man,
I mean, we're
Yankee
not
fan that.
You know what I mean? Like, I just don't know. I'm not one to panic. That's just not my demeanor. But I don't know. I still believe in Boone. I know a lot of people's like, Willie, you got to be something in the coffee, but I think you just got to keep riding with him. I don't know what's the next. I don't know the answer after Boone. What do you do? You know what I mean? Like, I'm just stuck at that.
Yeah. 800-919-3776, 800-919-ESPN. All right, Anthony in Staten Island starts us off this morning. He's on 98.7 ESPN. Bob Wischusen and Willie Colon in for DCR. What's up, Anthony?
Good morning, guys. How you doing?
Morning.
How do I start? You guys came back from the break, basically said what I was thinking. When is Brian Cashman going to be held responsible for not being able to have the pulse of the team? I know you said that he wants to ride with his guys, but when are you able not to? When are you going to say you can't judge what you have? He doesn't know what he has. And as far as Aaron Boone, he is second guessing himself, and I know panicking is never a good way to be when you're in professional sports or anything. Panicking doesn't solve anything, but. Mm-hmm. I mean, you could tell that he's at a crossroads because he doesn't know when to pull the trigger. He doesn't know when to, use his gut. Okay, Domingo Germán's, throwing a gem, but he gets into a little trouble, we yank him. But then Loaizaga is, pooping the bed, and we ride with him. So it seems like neither one of the guys has any clue of what they're doing from day to day.
Well, I would say this, and look, Willie lived the Jets life. I call Jets games. We've both been in a position where you want to try and keep a level head early in a season that's not going so well. But at some point, you reach that crossroads where now it's a red alert, right? Like now we are no longer in a position.
So this is your red alert.
Oh, David Cone said it. Yeah. David Cone said it in the 6th inning yesterday. You can feel this is that moment. Like the fan base is going to rally around these 2 wins. To lose the way they did in heartbreaking fashion on Thursday, to be dead in the water on Friday, to have the emotional comeback on Saturday, Germán throwing a no-hitter today.
Well,
Here comes Aaron Judge. The trade deadline's right around the corner. This is the moment. And then to lose the way they did and not manage the 8th inning like it's Game 7 of the World Series, to me, is a mistake. You are not sensing that moment is at hand, to me.
No, I don't feel that way. I feel like this is a team who's still gritty enough to find their way. Like I said, I was more on the red alert side when the Mets series happened. I was more like, that's for me was like, man, you may have to stick a fork in this team. Yesterday was, I think yesterday was just a tough loss. It was tough to deal with because of Herman, the way he pitched. It was tough to see you talking about DJ in the first, a leadoff double. I mean, you talk about how that team really started. I mean, that team started you would think was about to pull away with another win and drop it at the last minute. I think they just suck. They're just tough, man. I don't feel the panic. I don't feel the red alert. I think they still have to work through these things, and I'm just not there. I think I was there when they played the Mets. When they played the Mets, I was like, whoa, this isn't it.
Yeah, Aaron Boone in post-game press conference after post-game press conference keeps saying this was another gut punch, but these guys are resilient. They've been through adversity before. They're going to keep on coming back. I don't know how. I mean, if you're believing him when he says that, I think you're in the minority. I think a lot of Yankee fans out there keep hearing the same thing. It's like a record on skip.
Well, what do you want him to say?
Well,
how transparent can he be?
Yeah, I don't know. I think
he still has to sell the team. He still has to sell this team can get up. He still has to sell that this team isn't quitting, right? Because God forbid that comes out. God forbid if there's rumors or stories coming out the locker room like this team is looking for somebody to save them, or if the team is looking just to kind of get through the season, and we'll figure out what happens at the end. If those headlines start popping out the locker room, then forget about it.
Yep. Hey, real quick, let's squeeze in Brian in Millburn here on 98.7 ESPN. Hey, Brian.
Hello, how you doing? Yesterday I was watching the game, and Domingo, I forget, I'm not saying things precisely, but he was pitching like a no-hitter. So he gives up one hit, and I seen Boone running out the dugout. I said, oh, no. Come on, let him pitch this game. And as soon as he let Loiza cut in the game, he gave the game up.
No, Brian, that's not fair. That's not fair. Leaving Loiza getting too long, fair. Not drawing in the infield fair. Taking Herman out when he's already a dozen pitches past the limit that they want him to be at. I think Michael actually said it calling the game. They were wondering, even with the no-hitter in tow, if Herman was going to come out for the eighth inning. So the moment that he gave up a long, ringing off the wall double to start off the eighth inning, I can't imagine there was too many Yankee fans that if they're dialed into what they thought Herman had in the tank, that they were upset that he came out of the game at that point.
Yeah, I think a lot of people was like, okay, we see it. Let's get him out of there.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Thanks for listening to the DiPietro, Canty, and Rothenberg podcast.
I don't wake up at 4 a.m. to wear a swim shirt.
Looking for more access to the show? Follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at DCR on ESPN.
And we got jam phone lines, but there's actually a spot or two available if you want to give us a buzz. It's been wall-to-wall Yankees so far, and looks like Paul is driving around. He's been patient, so he joins us next year on 98.7 ESPN. Go ahead, Paul, vent.
Good morning, guys. Devastating loss yesterday, but just one of many this season. Couple things. Does Boone have any feel for the game? I know he played for many years. Is he allowed to make any decisions on his own?
I would think at least a couple of moments in that game yesterday. If it's not in your manager's hands, then whose hands is it in? Right? I mean, to me, well, if you don't have the right to go out there after Loiza gives up 3 hits, the first 3 guys he faces, and yank him after 4, there's no way there's an analytics department telling him keep him in there to face the leadoff hitter. That's the manager's decision.
But I also think him coming off the COVID list, I think he's like, man, he just got to work through this. I think that's what Boone falls in trouble a lot. He allows this guy to work through things when there's no time to work through that. You got to step ahead. Like, man, we'll get to you another time, but we got to get this win. And I think that's what you was talking about earlier, Bob, and when David Cohn, like, this is that pivotal moment where we need you to step up instead of kind of just waiting to see, if he's going to come through the other side of this. And I think that's what happened to the Yankees yesterday.
Yep, and I can understand why a Yankee fan, as they're watching that game, needs to vent. So you can certainly do that with us at 800-919-3776, 800-919-ESPN. Let's go to Joseph, who is in L.A. Joseph, you just getting home? We're just getting up. You just ending your night, or you starting your day?
I'm just starting. I'm packing up. I got my protein shake ready. I'm actually getting ready to hit the gym. So,
man,
I got to work off that embarrassment that I watched yesterday. But as a Yankee fan, but I want to just know, I agree. Like, let this ride out. Like, the cavalry isn't coming. Like, this is who this team is. Like Parcells said, your record is what it is. You are what you are. Like, they're middle, above average, flawed, 5-game above 500 team. And for anyone who thinks it's going to get any better, no. They're like, Hal Steinbrenner, Aaron Boone, I'll add Aaron Judge in there because we're going to turn it around. And Brian Cashman are like the 4 guys on the Titanic playing the music, like the ship is sinking. And honestly, if you look at the schedules you got to get a chance this morning, other than the Marlins, the Orioles, and the Royals, who you could say, okay, safe harbor, they're pretty hideous. Every other team on that schedule that's coming is fighting for their playoff lives, if not already in it in some capacity. So this whole idea of, they're going to win one for the Gipper and they're going to turn it around, no,
it's
not.
Done. Yeah.
Chapman barely got through that win that they had. He was sweating. He was beating Sweat. Guy on second, guy on third. Good he did get out of it. Gary Sanchez up to his old man antics, lollygagging, do something right, then lollygag with that yesterday. It's hard to watch. Ride out what you got now and make adjustments for next year, who you're going to keep, who you're not. It doesn't make no sense. Fire this guy, fire that guy, fire sale. I hope the Rays take them behind the bar tomorrow and for the next couple of games and do what they have to do and just end it. Because the notion that they're just going to turn it around is absurd for anyone even like to think.
Well, but then,
have a beautiful day.
All right, thanks a lot for the call. So to me, Joseph's on board with what I said earlier, at least to a certain extent, which is at the trade deadline, you got to be one or the other. You can't be static. You can't just say, all right, I'm going to keep this team exactly as is and hope that at some point they flip the switch and we have some kind of a second-half run that I think, having watched 100-game sample size, it's hard to believe is coming. I personally, Willie, and I think with the 3.5-game deficit for that second wild card spot, you can definitely, especially in New York, you could definitely make the case that this is a team that should be desperate to go out and try and bring in one difference-making player, whether it's Trevor Story, Javi Baez. I think those would be 2 names that I think could be difference-making players, and they get Judge back. Sometimes a team like this, if they get like one kind of fresh blood in the clubhouse shot in the arm, that can make a big difference spirit-wise, and they may be able to grab one of those wild card spots, but they can't just stay pat. Either you got to decide what you are by the end of this week. Either we are buying, we're going to try to get that shot in the arm guy, or we're punting on this season. We realize we've got a misbuilt roster, and we're going to now change our focus for 2022.
Well, I also believe no matter who walks into that ball club, and you just said it, the shot in the arm, no matter who that is, they still have to be a believer in Boone and that team. And this is where Boone has to start building himself up. Like, hey, we can do this. He has to start making decisions along the way right now where no matter where he turns, that this team is still with him. Because you don't want guys to give up on him. You don't want him to see like he's starting to give up on the notion that they're the mighty great Yankees. Like, he has to stay consistent in his body language and his tone. So really, whoever comes along, they have to be a believer in Boone as well. And hopefully he can start turning around the narrative on him, because right now a lot of people are calling for his head, and you can't blame him. You know what I mean? I'm a Boone fan. I loved him as a ball player. I wasn't upset. Obviously, I'm a diehard Girardi guy, but when he got the nod, I was like, okay, well, let's give him a shot. And we were a fan of him till this season. So it's just tough to watch right now, because I think part of me, the fighter in me, wants to see this thing play out. But your record is what it is. It's your resume.
Yep. And by the way, football's back. Can you feel it? Are you feeling it? Are you feeling that we are actually on the verge of having some football to talk about? I mean, I can't. RJ walked in here a little while ago, and he was like, "Hey, do you still get? Does your clock still go on?" My clock, it started in June. Really? Yeah, I still get it. Bob, you still feel that? It's weird. I still get it, man. There's a part of me, I have mentioned we started to show the fresh cut grass, and you start seeing the kids, working out in the stadium. You start seeing all these things when you kind of, because I live in Paramus. But for me, as a ball player, I still have that internal clock where I find myself kind of just stretching randomly for no reason. Like, I'm not even sore. I just start stretching, kind of doing high knees, a dynamic warm-up around the kid's playpen as if I'm about to get going. So, I still have that clock in me, which is good. That means the blood is still pumping in me. I still get a pit in my stomach when I see 60 Minutes. On TV. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, when I see 60 Minutes on TV, I get a pit in my stomach because I still have that feeling of being like 13 years old and going, oh, my God, the football games are over. 60 Minutes is on. I haven't done my homework yet. I got school tomorrow. This stinks. without really, like I'll get home from working and still have a pit in my stomach. It's just, you know what? You're right. It is ingrained in you, that football schedule of the fall. Although in the summer, I always get the same feeling doing the Jets. You hit 4th of July. And it's like, oh, it's the 4th of July. Mm-hmm. Thank God. Summer is, like, the kids have been out of school for a week. Now it's summer. Summer is just starting. And then 3 weeks later, football players are back on the field running through tires. And every single year, having done this for 25 years,
God bless
I get to the exact same time of the year, and I'm like, I cannot believe football's
Here
back.
we go again.
At the same time, it comes back the exact same time every year, so I have no idea why I'm surprised by it, but I still am.
Bob, you know what it is, too, I think this year in particular, obviously we got, COVID and everything that's kind of, shaping the world. We've digested so much basketball. You know what I mean? Between the NBA Finals and now the Olympics, we've digested so much basketball. We've kind of, I know for me personally, I'm talking about me personally, I've kind of like turned my head away from football. Now that like the other day, I was talking to somebody about the Aaron Rodgers situation and Texas, Oklahoma, leaving, going to the SEC and all this. I'm like, hold up. I think football's back. You know what I mean? It's like, whoa, right. I think football's here. Let me put down all this basketball nonsense and get my head in the game, because here we are. The season is upon us, and there's a lot of good headlines going into the season.
Yep. Well, we got a lot to talk about at 800-919-3776, 800-919-ESPN. We will get to Jets and Giants. Robert in Old Bridge has been patient, so let's get him in here. He wants to talk a little football with us on 98.7 ESPN. Bob Wischusen and Willie Colon in for DCR. What's up, Robert?
Willie, Bob, good morning. Thanks for taking the call.
Good morning.
Willie, we met, man. Quick moment.
Sure.
Jets camp.
Okay.
Oh my goodness, I can't remember the year. So you guys were coming off the field. Jets Nation was coming around from Jets.com with the cameras. You took the microphone out of their hand and you wanted to interview the fans. I was the first guy you interviewed.
Oh, sweet.
So I don't know if you remember that moment. I was trying to hit you with questions, and you were like, "Whoa, slow down, brother! I'm interviewing you about us." So, just a quick moment, and Bob, we had a quick moment as well. I believe it was 2016 Q&A session in the Jets training facility right before the camp was going to begin. I know it was Jamal Adams, and I believe it was Matt Forte that was on the. That was on the stage, and you were with them, and we were asking.
I remember that.
And we were asking them questions. Yes, and I turned around and I was asking Jamal, because I'm a big LSU guy. I was asking Jamal a ton of questions about LSU, and you were like, "I don't know, do you work for LSU?" That was you who said that to me. So we had a quick moment as well. But anyway, fast forward to some question here, fellas. I am so psyched for the season. Last night, me and my son were watching the Flight 2021 on SNY. It just got us pumped. We're going to be at the green and white scrimmage on August 7th. So, Willie, I got a question for you and for you, Bob. So, Willie, my question to you is, with the breath of fresh air and Salah coming to this team, and, oh, my God, I can't even express how I feel about that, but the linebacker spot with C.J. Mosley,
yep.
I want to know, I would like to know your opinion on Jared Davis. Okay, that we took from the Lions. Mm-hmm. I read a great article yesterday about how he could resurrect his career. Tackling machine,
Yep.
And for you, Bob, and I'll take your questions off the air because I know there's a lot of people waiting. And for you, Bob, how do you feel about Zach and Mike LaFleur? And guys, I miss you. Can't wait for the Jets football, baby. I can't wait.
It's back, Robert. All right, thanks for the call. Go ahead, Willie. You take it first.
Yeah, I think when it comes to Mosley, man, we just want to see can he live up to the contract. When he landed with the Jets, man, and particularly coming from the Ravens, he was a guy who you thought was going to be a tone changer and a culture changer. Obviously, he set out because of COVID and all that other stuff. But when you look at what this Jets defense needs, they got to go get it. And that has to be C.J. Mosley. And this kid from the Lions, Davis, when you start talking about a player resurrecting his career, well, to resurrect his career, that's an individual battle himself. He needs to be a guy on his defense that can, because he has the years under his belt. He has to be a guy to kind of really get these guys lined up, really be able to get after the ball, and really start a tempo. Because I think so much when it comes to just starting with a new club, what's your tempo? How are you practicing? What's your day-to-day? Because this is a young team who's still looking to kind of get ahead and find themselves. Obviously, they're stacked on the defensive line side, but defensive side, we're doing well enough. Our secondary struggling a little bit, but from a defensive line point, we have quality depth. But for the linebacker, if CJ and Davis and these guys can really be tone setters, then you can start believing in what they have.
Well, before we get to Zach Wilson, Mike LaFleur, as far as C.J. Mosley is concerned, this would be my concern. And look, we've seen some examples of guys that have been out with long-term injuries that have come back. But he hasn't played basically for 2 years. Like the last guy that I saw as a Jet sit out for a year and then, as a franchise kind of player, was supposed to be there to make big plays was Le'Veon Bell. I'm still waiting for Le'Veon Bell to make a play. Right? The guy hasn't made a play since he was in Pittsburgh. Right? For 2 years, he didn't make a play. Name one game-changing difference. The Jets gave Le'Veon Bell the ball like 500 times in the 2 years that he was a part of this offense. I don't think he gained more than 20 yards on any play. I can't remember one. So
you got me thinking. I'm like, man.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, and I covered those games.
And, you can blame all of it on Adam Gase. That's what everybody wanted to do. Obviously, that's the low-hanging fruit, and great. Adam Gase did a terrible job. He is now gone. But Le'Veon Bell left here, went to Kansas City as part of the gold standard offense in the NFL with the best possible quarterback to play with the best possible play architect, play caller to play for, with skill position guys all over the field where he should have gotten, whenever he was on the field, the most favorable matchup he could possibly get. He couldn't get on the field in the playoffs for the Chiefs.
No.
He still hasn't made a play in Kansas City. So that's what I worry about with C.J. Mosley. Yes, the last time we saw C.J. Mosley looking like C.J. Mosley was 2 years ago
in the Ravens
on opening day, where he was making plays all over the field, and it looked like the Jets had, every bit the franchise middle linebacker you'd want. Now he's been out for 2 years. So what do I have a right to expect C.J. Mosley to look like and do this year off of that kind of a layoff?
Well, I think you expect him to hopefully – I struggle with kind of – I don't know what's the word I'm looking for. Coming off 2 years of not playing, you want to say, well, how much do you got to get this guy time, right? That's kind of the narrative of this show is how much time you're going to keep giving this guy. Well, we don't really have time with C.J. Mosley. Now he's put up a shutout, and you want him to be dominant. You want him to be some type of a vocal leader. You want to see him come out and have flashes of brilliance. But he is going to need time because he's been out for 2 years. But when he was in Baltimore, and to your point, even after Baltimore, when he got here, his first game, I was like, oh, okay, now I get it. We haven't seen that yet, and that's what's troubling about it.
Yeah. As far as Zach Wilson, Mike LaFleur are concerned, look, I am all about the Shanahan offense bringing that scheme that I would think fits this player perfectly here. All of that is great. And I think, Willie, you know this. I'm preaching to the choir. The number one thing that gives me hope about this quarterback and this offense is this general manager valuing your position.
Yeah,
for the first 100%. Time in a decade,
100%.
You've got a general manager that knows in the era of fantasy football, in the era of all we are cared about is stats and PPR and whether Christian McCaffrey is going to catch 80 balls this year and he's going to score 30 points a game and quarterback. This is still a game fundamentally of can Team A block Team B? And if Team A can't block Team B,
you don't have a
then
shot.
Team A's got no shot. I just talked about like the gold standard of NFL offense is the Kansas City Chiefs. What did the gold standard of offense look like in the Super Bowl when they couldn't block the other team? What did Patrick Mahomes look like in the Super Bowl? He looked like Sam Darnold. He looked like a guy running for his life for 4 quarters. And that was the raw deal that Sam Darnold was dealt for the 3 years he was here. They never supported him. They never gave him guys that could block for him. He had terrible skill position players. What did they do this offseason? They went out, and even the last 2 years if you count Becton, but they prioritized the offensive line. They prioritized weapons in the draft. They are doing whatever they can, I think, to insulate a rookie quarterback and give him a puncher's chance to have some success early to build on that, and I like that a lot.
Bob, you said it, a puncher's chance.
Right.
You know what I mean? Which we didn't have. You're talking about a team a year ago coming up. I mean, they were 2-14. They didn't even have a drop of water. They were dried up and washed. So it's tough to kind of it's tough to sit here and say, man, I want the best for Zach Wilson and not give him an offensive line. He has an offensive line. You believe in what he can do. Now to start putting the pieces around him. I want this kid. I think the best thing working for Zach Wilson right now is that he's new, too. He's new to the city. He's new to the game. And I think sometimes that kind of putting blinders on and not overthinking it and just going out and play does wonders. It gives a team a spark. So I'm excited to see him running around there and throw the ball, man. Hopefully he lives up to the hype because a lot of people are watching. A lot of people are excited to see what he can do.
Yeah, and I'm still a Sam Darnold believer. I am.
Oh, 100%.
I think Sam can still do this at a very high level. I think he's going to do well in Carolina. And, like, both things can be true. Right? Like, Sam Darnold can do really well in Carolina, and Zach Wilson can be a really good quarterback here. But I just, if Sam Darnold was still the quarterback, the one thing I understand why the organization went the way they went, there are a couple reasons, but one is Sam, even if you gave him a totally different offensive line and different weapons, he'd still be carrying the baggage of what happened to him the last 3 years. He'd still have that on his shoulders, whereas you're right, like Zach Wilson comes in here, nothing that happened the last 3 years happened to him, right? A totally fresh set of eyes, a totally new career out in front of him, and so I think you're right. I think that should serve him well.
Yeah, I think he also has kind of this stigma right now. He's the Richie Rich kid. Did you hear about his uncle? Being, I think, the founder of JetBlue. You heard about the Zach Wilson weekend that was just happening?
That's good. That shows some leadership.
I mean, I'm like, this kid can't. I mean, he's a winner. I mean, they're flying. I guess his uncle is, I think, a founder of JetBlue. Has rented a 200-person charter, and I think BYU plays somebody Saturday. They're all flying from that game and landing in Carolina for the opening day, just to cheer Zach Wilson up. I mean, you talk about pull-ups. There's going to be kid gloves everywhere. This kid is going to have the support on the field, support off the field. It's going to be Zach Wilson weekend. It's going to be good.
800-919-3776, 800-919-ESPN. DCR with the day off. Bob Wischusen, Willie Colon in. We will come back. We'll reset the Yankees. If you're just getting up and just joining us to kick off your week, and you're a Yankee fan that needs to get it off your chest before you go to work, we certainly understand. You can lay on the couch. We will pull up the chair. We will listen, vent. That's fine. And we'll also get into some Giant football along with the Jets. With football starting this week, you want to talk Jets and Giants with us as well. Feel free to give us a call. Mets, they're on the board as well, but I don't know if a Met fan wants to call right now because, as we said to start the show, sports talk radio is about yelling and screaming and complaining, and right now it probably is more a Yankee fan that wants to yell and scream and complain than a Met fan.
Thanks for listening to the DiPietro, Canty, and Rothenberg podcast.
I have nothing left.
Hear more of DiPietro, Canty, and Rothenberg live weekday mornings from 5 to 8 a.m. on 98.7 ESPN in New York, the ESPN app, the TuneIn app, or on your smart speaker.
Hey Alexa, play ESPN New York 98.7.